Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. This is day 2 of my NFL Draft Grade series. So, obviously, if you did not watch yesterday's video, this is how it's going to kind of go down. I'm going to go over every team in the NFC North, pick by pick, talking about each player just a little bit, giving each individual pick a grade, and then I will give an overall pick for the team. The overall grade is not listed here, just so you guys have to kind of follow along and not get too many preconceived notions before I kind of get to it. So, that's kind of how I was breaking down. If you did not check out the NFC West video yesterday, please go back and check that out if that's something you're interested in as well. But without further ado, we're going to start off with the Chicago Bears. The Bears had an interesting draft. Obviously, they did not have a first-round pick due to Justin Fields' trade-up of last year. So they had the 7th pick and the second round with Kyler Gordon here, cornerback out of Washington. Prospect I do like quite a bit. I did give this pick an A. They obviously do need a corner across from Jalen Johnson. That's a position they struggled with, obviously, since the departure of Kyle Fuller. But some people will argue that he wasn't even the best corner on the board. You should have took Andrew Booth. I think Kyler Gordon's a perfect scheme fit here. Maybe you take a wide receiver or offensive lineman to help Justin Fields out a little bit more. You could argue that as well, but I still think this is a very good pick overall. Then with their second round pick, they took Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State. I gave this pick a B. Obviously, Tashawn Gibson is a free agent. He kind of replaces him rather easily, so I think that's a pretty good pick overall. Then in the 3rd round, they finally pick a wide receiver, Velus Jones out of Tennessee. This dude's going to be 25 years old by the start of the season. Kind of a burner, not too much else at this point in time. He's probably going to be a good kick returner, vertical deep threat, but probably not much more than that. You'd like to see somebody a little bit more well-rounded for this team, and somebody maybe that has a little bit higher upside than Velus Jones. So I did give that pick a D. Obviously, it was a position need, but I don't think that was the right pick there at that time. And then the 5th round, they took Braxton Jones, tackle out of Southern Utah. One of my favorite developmental tackles in this class. Obviously, you're hoping that he doesn't have to play right away, but I did give this pick an A. I think if he did have to play right away, he probably could come in, but he struggled at the same time. Maybe they move him into guard and keep Larry Borum out at right tackle like they did last year. And then we had Dominique Robinson, edge out of Miami, Ohio. So this is a guy that is pretty raw, kind of converted to that linebacker edge position a little bit later in his career. I think there was a weird stat out there where he didn't even start a single college game, which is kind of crazy to be drafted even, but he's a very raw prospect, has decent measurables, nothing like super over the top, but a guy you're taking a chance on, so I did give that pick a C. Then we moved down to Zachary Thomas, offensive lineman, mainly played offensive tackle at San Diego State. I gave that pick a B since they do need offensive line help and depth, so he's going to add a little bit of that. Will he ever be a full-time starter? Probably not, but I do like part of what the Bears did here. They did a lot of trading down, so they accumulated a lot of 6th and 7th round picks, kind of taking dart throws on a lot of these guys and hoping some of them end up developing. Then they took Justin Ebner, running back out of Baylor. I gave this pick a D. I think running back position was probably one of the positions the Bears really didn't need to address. And Ebner himself was kind of a borderline draftable prospect to me. Maybe he's their Tariq Cohen replacement. There is some talk about him maybe converting to a slot wide receiver. So if that happens, then we'll be a little bit more loose on this grade. But as of right now, I did give it a D. Then with the last pick that they did have in the 6th round, they took Doug Kramer, center out of Illinois. I gave the pick a B. Obviously it's some more offensive line help. He might even be able to come in and challenge Sam Mustipher for that starting center job right away, or at least kind of give him a little bit of a push to get the best out of him as well. Doug Kramer, if he didn't get hurt last year and he came out, there were some that thought he might be like an early day 3 pick, and now you're getting him towards almost the 7th round. Then in the 7th round, they took Jay Tyre Carter out of Southern, another offensive lineman. I gave that pick a B, another raw developmental guy. Some of these guys may end up panning out, but when you take 4 of them, hopefully you're just hitting on at least 2 of them. Then their next 7th round pick, they end up with Elijah Hughes, safety out of California. Probably just a good backup special teams guy, decent amount of experience, but probably not going to be anything special. He does offer a little bit of versatility because he's played some corner, he's played some safety in college, so could do a lot worse there, but, probably a guy you could have got as a priority free agent as well. Then last but not least, they took Trenton Gill, a punter out of NC State. Obviously, they did have a need at punter after they lost Pat O'Donnell, who had been there for quite some time, but never quite the best punter in the league. But hopefully they get a little bit of an upgrade there with Trenton Gill out of NC State, so I gave that pick a C as well. Overall, the Bears draft, there's some good here, there's some bad here. Obviously, you do see 2 A's, a couple B's, but you also got the D's in there in the C. So I did average this out to be about 8 overall C grade. I think the Bears could have definitely done better, but they could have also done worse. It was a very unique strategy that they took where they made their first 3 picks, and then they kept trading back and acquiring more picks so they could get some raw guys. And I think that's what this Bears team is going to try to do overall in the next couple of years, is really just load up on talent and hoping some of these guys end up hitting. Then we move over to the Detroit Lions, who, I'm just going to say it right here, they had a pretty solid draft. They had Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end out of Michigan. I don't think they thought they were going to get him at the number 2 pick, but obviously Trayvon Walker went number 1. So don't have to say too much here. This is an A pick. They ended up trading up for Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Quite a few people that thought he was the best wide receiver in this draft class if he did not have the ACL injury. We saw 1 year of production out of Alabama. There are some questions about why he got buried behind the other 3 guys at Ohio State, but we're not going to ask too much about that. I gave the pick a B. Obviously, they had to trade up and get it. You can make the argument maybe the Lions are better off picking 2 guys at 32 and 34 than just one big playmaker, but it's still a very good player nonetheless. Then their second round pick, they took Josh Pascal, defensive lineman out of Kentucky. I give this pick a B. Some people think it was a little bit of a reach, which it kind of was technically, but fills a position of need. I think he's going to be a solid, steady presence on that defensive line. I don't think he's going to be anything over the top, but if you just get a solid guy, you can't ask for too much more, even in the second round. Then in the third round, they went with Kirby Joseph, safety out of Illinois. I gave that pick an A. I think he has a chance to start day 1. Pretty solid, smart player. There's a little bit of growing to still do in terms of overall gameplay, but could be a very good safety for them in time. The fifth round, they went with James Mitchell, tight end out of Virginia Tech. I gave the pick a C. Obviously, you have TJ Hawkinson there. Brock Wright was behind him last year and was a decent tight end too, but James Mitchell, another guy that's coming off a knee injury. There is some upside there athletically, but does he ever hit that at the NFL level? We've seen some guys do it. We've seen other guys just kind of be like a Jake Butt and disappear in times too. So probably a guy I would want to take more in the 6th, 7th round, but can't be too picky at this point in time, but it was a C overall. Then in the 6th round, they stole Malcolm Rodriguez, linebacker out of Oklahoma State. This pick's an easy A. It was a position of need. Obviously, he's a little bit undersized, but plays very, very physical for his size. Very good in coverage, obviously, since he is a converted safety. May end up playing a pretty big role year 1 even. And then the 6th round pick, you'll take that every single day of the week. Then they took James Houston, linebacker. Some people list him as edge, 2 out of Jacksonville State. I gave the pick a B. There is some upside there, but probably going to be a rotational player more than anything at this point in time. And then last but not least, in the 7th round, they took Chase Lucas out of Arizona State. A guy that's been around for a while, very competitive corner. Not the most athletic guy in the world, but relatively smart player, very experienced. Going to play some special teams and provide some depth at the cornerback position, so I did give it a B. Overall, this Lions team, I gave a B overall. Probably would give it a B plus if I was doing the whole plus minus thing. Now we get to the point where things get pretty interesting. Obviously, there's a lot to be said about the Packers after day 1. Quay Walker was their first pick at 22 overall, linebacker out of Georgia. He was my 7th linebacker going into the draft. I gave this pick a D. You could argue maybe it's a position of need, but they don't play their second linebacker a lot of the time, like 50 to 60%. Maybe they want that guy to be on the field more. Maybe this is a guy that Joe Barry can coach up, because that's the one thing he is really good at doing, is coaching up linebackers. But they literally just paid Devondre Campbell, who was coming off an all-pro season, and you have a big giant hole at wide receiver. So I could argue that maybe if you take Devonta Wyatt at 22, Christian Watson at 28, not trade up, then you probably get Quay Walker at 53 or 59 either way, or a different linebacker. You'd probably be better off in that situation, plus you have another second-round pick. But without going too far down that rabbit hole, I'm going to talk about the rest of the class. I don't think Quay Walker's a bad player. I just think it was a reach where they ended up taking him. He was a 2nd to 3rd round pick in my mind. 7th overall linebacker, and they took him as the first linebacker off the board. Then in the 28th pick, they took Devontae Wyatt, defensive lineman out of Georgia. I think he's going to be a very good scheme fit, give them production right away. Pretty good B for me there. The only knock on him is he's already 24 years old, but not too worried about that at this point in time. Obviously, they traded up for Christian Watson, 2nd pick of the 2nd round, with the Minnesota Vikings. Oddly enough, Vikings like trading with the Lions and the Packers for whatever reason this year. Wide receiver out of North Dakota State. Not sure if I already said that, but that is a B pick for me overall. Obviously, a position of need, but the fact that they had to trade up because they screwed up the 1st round is what makes this a B. And Christian Watson is somebody I am very, very high on. I've liked him since 2020, and I think there's a lot of upside there. But there also could be a little bit of swing and miss potential, or maybe he doesn't develop right away. Then in the 3rd round, they took Sean Ryan, offensive lineman out of UCLA, played tackle in college, probably going to play guard in the pro. Maybe a guy that even starts day one if you play Elton Jenkins at right tackle. I did give this pick an A. I think there's a lot of value there. Maybe a guy that could have even gone in the end of the second round. Then the fourth round, they took my least favorite wide receiver prospect in the entire draft, Romeo Doubs out of Nevada. We have literally no testing numbers on this guy. He was a vertical threat in college, but a lot of it was against inferior corners in the conference that they did play in. So there is some concerns about that. Not good after the catch, had some drops on film. And just a guy that had a very limited route tree. There's just not a lot there to like about him in terms of me. He had a pretty poor Senior Bowl week, supposedly had a knee injury, and that's why he didn't test at the combine or at his pro days. So you don't really know what you're getting with him there. He's probably a guy, in my humble opinion, that's going to be in Aaron Rodgers' doghouse by like day one of like mini camp, training camp, whatever you want to call it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. So that's why it's a D for me. I had like a 7th round grade on Romeo Doubs. So taking him in the 4th round is a pretty big reach for me, although it was a position of need. Then their other 4th round pick was very good in Zach Tom, offensive lineman out of Wake Forest. Tested out very well athletically, has the potential to pretty much move along the offensive line, any position that you need him to fill in. So as a 6th offensive lineman, if he doesn't end up starting, that is something that's very, very valuable. So that picks an A. 5th round, they took Kingsley Egberi, edge out of South Carolina. He had a lot of production in college the past 2 years. However, not the most athletic guy in the world. Maybe an edge setter in that 3-4 defense, 3-3-5, whatever you want to call it for the Packers at this point in time. Probably just a rotational player more than anything, but a pretty good pick in the 5th round, so I did give it a B. And then they took Tariq Carpenter in the 7th round, linebacker / safety. He played safety at Georgia Tech. He was listed as linebacker when they drafted him, so I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with him. Probably more of a special teams guy than anything, so that pick was a C. Then they took Jonathan Ford, defensive tackle out of Miami. Bigger guy, rotational guy here. He does have some upside, but there is some questions if he ever going to reach his full potential. So maybe he's a guy that makes the team. Maybe he's a guy that doesn't even end up making the team. Maybe he ends up on the practice squad or just getting cut altogether. So I did give that pick a C. Then they took Rasheed Walker, offensive tackle at Penn State. Coming into the season, there was a lot of guys that had him in like top 10 category, like at the offensive tackle position, including Mel Kiper. He really disappointed this year. I think he profiles a little bit better at guard position, but offering a little bit of versatility there if he does end up making the team. I did give that pick a B. And then the last pick they had was Samori Toure, wide receiver out of Nebraska. And most people probably don't even know who this guy was, but back in 2019, he led the Big West in receiving yards, which was an FCS school, obviously, at Montana. Transfers to Nebraska after the 2020 COVID season, obviously. Did not end up playing at all that year. Had a solid year at Nebraska. Nothing like super over the top, but he did have big flash games, including against Ohio State. He offers a little bit of speed, some yards after the catch ability. I think he's a guy that will profile very well in this system. I did give this pick a B overall. Reminds me of a little bit of Brandon Ayuk, but kind of in a lesser version, obviously. But overall, I did give the Packers draft a B. I think kind of the strategy and execution of some of their picks was kind of poor, but they did get some good value as well. Then next up, we had the Minnesota Vikings. They traded back from the 12th overall pick. They picked up a couple other picks from the Lions. They drafted Lewis Cine at the end of the 1st round, safety out of Georgia. For me, this grade's a C. I'm not somebody that was very high on Lewis Cine. I think he's a 199-pound strong safety, which probably not going to work out too well at the NFL level. Very good hitter, gets lost in coverage at times. Kind of got bailed out by the rest of the Georgia defense, in my humble opinion. If you disagree with that, that's perfectly fine as well. But he does have some developing to do to be a starting safety at the NFL level. Then, obviously, they had the second pick in the 2nd round, trade back with the Packers. Now they ended up picking Andrew Booth at 210, who they actually had to move up a little bit to grab as well. A corner out of Clemson. Fell a lot further than people thought, but he does have some injury concerns. Only started 1 year at Clemson. Obviously, it was a position of need. Could be a decent scheme fit, so I did give that pick a B overall. Then their other 2nd round pick, they took Ed Ingram, guard out of LSU. This is not anything against Ed Ingram, that he's a bad player or anything like that. I had a 3rd round grade on him, but you took Wyatt Davis a year ago. And I'm not sure Ed Ingram's better than Wyatt Davis, and you didn't even give Wyatt Davis a fair chance. He had like COVID and some injury stuff like last year. I don't know if that's completely fair. Maybe you try to convert Ed Ingram to center and challenge Bradbury as well, but it was just kind of a weird pick in my opinion. I think they had bigger needs at that point in time. Then in the 3rd round, they took Brian Asamoah, linebacker out of Oklahoma. I give this pick a D. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. He's pretty lower down on my linebacker board. And the fact of the matter is you already got Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks there playing linebacker. Not sure how he fits into their defense overall. And then in the 4th round, they trade up for Caleb Evans, corner out of Missouri. You could argue corner is a position of need, but I don't think he's worth it at this pick. I think you could probably not trade up to get him because I don't think anybody ahead of you is going to take him either way. If you didn't do that, maybe this pick's a C. But there is a little bit upside there, but I'm not sure exactly how that all plays out, especially when you have Andrew Booth and Cam Dantzler, who I do like a lot already on the team that they just didn't give a fair shake to last season. Then in the 5th round, they took Ezi Otomeo, defensive lineman out of Minnesota. I may have mispronounced his name. If I did, I apologize for that. If anybody knows the correct pronunciation, just let me know as well. I gave that pick a B. Yeah, honestly, this is one of their better picks. It's going to be a good scheme fit for the defense they're trying to run, which is a little bit more like what the Rams have ran in recent seasons. So that's a pretty good scheme fit. Pretty good player overall, too. Obviously, had a little bit of injury concerns, which pushed his workout back from his pro day to a separate workout. Then their other 5th round pick was Ty Chandler, running back out of North Carolina. I gave this pick a B. I do like Ty Chandler quite a bit. He offers a little bit in the receiving game. Could be their kind of like Amir Abdullah replacement. I know they have Kenny Nwangu, but he's more of a kick returner, kind of more of a gadget guy almost at the running back position. But Alexander Madison will be a free agent after the season. You're not signing a backup running back to a lot of money. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's under contract for a few more years as well. So Ty Chandler, pretty good replacement, backup running back. And he also offers a little bit of speed and a little bit in the receiving game as well. Then in the 6th round, they took Verdian Lowe, offensive tackle out of Illinois. Give that pick a B too, some offensive line depth, a little bit of a developmental prospect. But, he does have some playing experience. I don't hate this pick by any means. Their other 6th round pick was a guy that I did like a lot as a sleeper in this class, Jalen Naylor, wide receiver out of Michigan State. Gave the pick a B, probably a good slot wide receiver a couple years from now. They still have Adam Thielen this year. If something happens to him, he gets hurt once again, Jalen Naylor could potentially step up as well. Obviously, they have KJ Osborne, who played pretty well last year, but this is probably a little bit more of a move for the future, and hopefully he pans out and develops into a good player like I think he can be. Then last round, they took Nick Muse, tight end out of South Carolina. Gave the pick a C. Not a guy that I thought was going to get drafted, or at least borderline getting drafted. So it is maybe a position that you could add some depth to, but they also have some guys in there at this point in time with Irv Smith. I believe Chris Herndon's still there. And then they took Zach Davidson last year out of Central Missouri as well at tight end. So we'll see if Nick Muse even makes the team. But overall, this was a very interesting draft by the Vikings. They kept trading back a lot of picks. They took a lot of guys probably higher than they should have. So overall, I did give them kind of a favorable grade and a C. I think they addressed some positions of need, but overall, I wasn't in love with this draft class. Day 3 was probably better for them than the rest of the draft, but that's kind of a story for a different day. And I think if you're doing like the plus minuses, this is a C minus draft and probably one of the lower ones overall in terms of the teams that drafted this season. So this new GM and coaching staff really have a lot of work to do, especially with some of these guys and getting them to hit their ceilings overall. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the teams from the NFC North, kind of my draft grades for them, thoughts on kind of each individual pick. Let me know your guys' thoughts as well, whether or not you agree with what I had to say. If there was a pick that you liked a little bit more or a little bit less than I did, definitely interested in hearing that as well. If you're a fan of one of these teams, definitely let me know. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers. Breaking down the NFL draft team by team, pick by pick with this NFL draft grade series. Tomorrow's going to be the NFC South. Definitely be sure to look out for that video as well. And then with that being said, if you are newer current subscribers yet to do so, also be sure to hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. Like I've been saying, I post up daily MLB DFS videos. I have a weekly USFL DFS videos, and then obviously this NFL draft grade series as well for the short time being. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.